missed all my great introduction. It's okay. Yeah, don't. We move forward. So, anyway, so you got the picture. Whoever think shouldn't be there. You walk in and you're like, what? Yeah. Interesting you should say that. That was okay. So so you got a picture in your mind of who you would be surprised by if, as Manjushri, you were now walking into this room and you're seeing the Buddha with whomever that person picturing is, sitting next to him in just deep samadhi. So samadhi that Manjushri himself, who knows all, I mean, he's pretty omnipotent. He's been obviously alive and teaching all these Buddhas for all these kalpas, and he's got these superhuman, supernatural powers. Couldn't wake her up. Took her up to the Brahman heaven, and there's probably a list of magical incantations that he cast, and nothing worked. And he comes back, and the Buddha's like, dude, really, hundreds of you couldn't do this. So that's the first part. Hold on, why? Why can't you, as Manjushri, bring someone out of samadhi? And why is this person that you least expect to be sitting there so deep in samadhi that they can't come out? Then Momio, who's described, as a baby bodhisattva. He's only achieved the first. There are 52 stages of enlightenment, so he's achieved the first stage, and that's all. His job is to be the wisdom of delusion, and he's 12. What did they say? What did he say? 12 million. He was far away. Here it is. 1,200 million lands below. Lands as innumerable descends of the Ganges, the Bodhisattva Momio, he will be able to arouse her. So obviously he hears the Buddha from that distance and instantly manifests, snaps his fingers, says, get up, girl. And she's up and at him. So this bodhisattva, first degree bodhisattva, we'll put him that way, outdoes the infinite degree Manjushri with following the Buddha's request. Because the Buddha said, you would think that these people they know everything. The Buddha knew that Manjushri couldn't do this. Manjushri knew that he couldn't do this. But they did it anyway. So I like the way Eiken Roshi puts it. The actor knows that the butler did it, but he doesn't give it away because the play's the thing. So this drama is presented to you on behalf of PBS. Yes. I used to know all the underwriters that they would list, but they've changed in recent years. They're new. For your benefit. So this story is for the benefit of practitioners to consider this. What's going on here? How does this show up? How do you show up as Manjushri? How do you show up as the Buddha? How do you show up as Momio? How do you show up as the least expected person to be sitting in samadhi next to the Buddha? And why do you do what you do in this context? This is the story that you slot yourself into each of these characters and and experience this koan directly from each of those perspectives. That's why. That's what the story is for. And there is an answer to this koan. So there's all that drama for a realization, what you come to, an important realization, because we tend to think that everything, that all these different characters are actually separate. They are different. So let's not mistake difference for separate. They are different, but they are not separate. Because oneness contains infinite difference. So all these characters are one, just as we are. We talk about this all the time, and we get a little cliche about it. But oneness tends to mean one with me the way I want it to be, instead of oneness with things as they are. And without us, and we are not separate from all that oneness. In an infinite universe, everything is at the center of the universe. So we are the center, and so is everything and everyone else. So we all orbit, if you will, around each other, around that center, wherever that center is. So that's the important aspect of this koan, is to really take all of this in, because it calls out where it is we separate, especially people who are sincere with practice. You want practice to look a certain way, and you think that only certain people are Buddhas. But this woman was in the same room as the meeting with the Buddhas, in which the Bodhisattvas got excluded, which is interesting that they didn't talk about that in either of these commentaries. Like, how does one get there? And why was she allowed to stay, but Manjushri and none of the other bodhisattvas? So there are thousands of bodhisattvas. We know the most popular ones: Manjushri, Kuan Yin, the Avalokitesvara, the Bodhisattva of compassion, Jizo, who's the only bodhisattva that can go into hell and come back alive, and bring people back alive. So those are the three most famous. There's a whole litany of them. So, and the job of the bodhisattva is to make sure that everybody else is enlightened before they are, before they take that last step in Buddha. So they can't become a Buddha until everybody else becomes a Buddha. Avalokitesvara is the 1,000 years, 1,000 hands, 1,000 faces, hears the cries of the world all the time, and is responding with compassion to every single one of those cries all the time. Busy person, very busy person. But that's who all of us are. We are the manifestation of Avalokitesvara, listening to the cries of the world that we're in, and the cries that we hear, and we're responding to those cries. And then we come here, and we're Manjushri, cutting off delusion, bringing ourselves back to our breath, sitting on the cushion, no matter how horrible it feels, doing the practice, doing what it takes, doing the work. That's Manjushri. And for maybe 5, 10, 15, a minute, you actually feel that really deep samadhi. You experience that complete oneness with the universe, which is what samadhi means, oneness with the universe.
Oneness with
the universe.
So it's not meditation.
Well, it is, yeah. Because that's where the samadhi is experienced in meditation, but it is that experience of oneness with the universe that is what the word literally means from Sanskrit. So now what? What do you do with all of those experiences? How do you live your life? What shows up? What comes up? Who are you? And in any given moment, you have all of this vast Buddhist canon, these identities to draw from. at any given time. These are all here as demonstrations of manifestations of you. These are not just mythical creatures that existed, millions of kalpas ago. They are continuing today through you, as you, into your everyday life. And that's how you answer the call, is by responding to this scenario as you today, right here, right now. Hard to do, a lot to work with, but that's what life is. Hard to do, a lot to work with. It's not easy. No one said it would be, but worth the journey, worth the work, worth the coming back to your breath over and over and over and over and over and over again. And an amazing teaching that we have, amazing teachers that we've had, amazing litany of people and creatures and mythologies that we have to go back to teach us over and over again, because there's something new every single time. There's no end to the Buddhist canon. I mean, it's huge. I want to go back and now read, because the story is slightly modified for the koan. I don't know what the original said, but I'll have to find it and read it for myself, because it comes from a Chinese sutra that was written, what did the book say, second or third or fourth century China. So not original in Sanskrit. It's a Chinese story, interestingly enough. But an interesting juxtaposition of characters and power and various job duties, if you will. So certainly there's some cultural aspects of this that come into play. Manjushri's surprised because this is written at a time when women were not considered to be anywhere near equal. They weren't allowed in a lot of these places. We're still working on getting past that. We're a long way from true equality, but this is centuries and centuries, millennia of the sort of discrimination becomes manifest even among Buddhists who you would think would know better. At least from my 21st century filter going back, you said all beings. What's with the discrimination? But we are all products of the culture in which we live. We have those prejudices, despite our best efforts. We look back on, we don't have to look back on our own lives too far, to see, wow, why did I think that in the 90s? And here we are today, thinking differently, hopefully. But and we see people who are still trying to hold us back into previous ways of being. They want certain types of people. They want women. They want them in the roles that were assigned to them back by culture 100 years ago. And we look at that now, going, wow, that's just so backward. And so, looking back a couple thousand years, those prejudices were even stronger. So you have that, but we can get past that with, just put Trump in that in that position. Can you imagine what would the world be like if indeed Donald J. Trump did Zazen to the point of achieving Samadhi?
No, I'm sure it would be.
No, maybe. Would he be any different? Probably not, because this practice does not change people. You manifest as you. You bring yourself to this practice. And I know there is a teacher in Maizumi Roshi's lineage who literally has blown up several of his sanghas because of his ultra conservative points of view. I mean, to the point of just insulting. And I regard him as being one of my dearest friends. Um, and I will never forget. I think I've told this story. He's the one who called me one day and said, "WaYu, how come I don't have any black people in my sangha?" And I just left. I was like, "Well, first of all, you're in Santa Monica, so second of all, you're very conservative. You're not going to attract a lot of people. Well, I need to work on that." So we did this whole, racism thing at his Zendo. It was really quite good. It was quite effective. I don't think he's at all, he racist. He's not prejudiced along those lines, but he just has, very politically conservative, more fiscally conservative views. That, but sometimes it leaks out in him, saying things in Dharma talks that people have just lost their minds at, and half the sangha is stormed out of his Dharma talks, and and he's actually opened and closed the Zendo a couple of times because nobody came. But but doing Zazen did not turn him into a progressive, and he's very accomplished, and he's an approved teacher, by my Zumi Roshi, and he's a good Zen teacher. I mean, he has got the practice itself down, but his personal views have remained the same. I haven't seen him in a couple of years. He did preside over my 10 years ago. He was there's part of the transmission ceremony that a guest teacher presides over. So Tenchin invited him, because he knew that he was my friend. So Tenchin invited him to preside over part of my transmission ceremony. So that was the last time I saw him. That was 9 years ago, 10 years ago. Anyway, so probably Trump achieving Samadhi might certainly change what he's experienced, but his personal views, his personal ways of interacting with the world are probably very much dependent on how he was raised and his own background and how he's come to be in the world the way he is. So expecting that if, we often, I heard myself saying the other day, because I was taking care of the email for Yokoji, and somebody on email got really snippy. and I said to, one of the colleagues, they said, "This guy needs a few years of moo." As if that would change him. It probably wouldn't. But so we have this expectation that this oneness looks like the way you want it to, or that it feels the way you want it to, or that everyone will be the way we want it to. It's one with me, after all. Instead of one with reality, one with the universe, and all of its vast differences and varieties. That's the oneness that's here. That's what you call. That is what you call forth. What you bring forth in Samadhi is the oneness with the vast differences that the universe is, as it is. So, if that experience for you has been, everyone is going to be the way I want it to be, that will limit your joy. Yes.
I think there are exceptions, but I have always felt like you can't sit for very long without asking yourself basic fundamental questions about who am I, what am I doing, and what is life, and those kinds of things. And if your practice doesn't lead to some kind of transformation, then I would wonder, are you really kind of getting what it has to offer? Like I said last week, the one person said, well, when I said, I'm imagining porn, his teacher said, well, if that's what you want to do,
yeah.
So people do whatever they want to do on the cushion, but I do think this is a transformative. I wouldn't be here if it wasn't.
Yeah,
it's a transformative practice for most people, and I would like to think that if Donald Trump did this practice for any length of time, and understood some of the basic foundational elements of who he is in relation to the universe, that would change some of the way he approaches life.
Well,
Maybe.
I don't know. I mean, certainly if he is truly suffering from what people have described as malignant narcissism, which, as far as I know, there is no cure for a narcissist because narcissists can't see. So, like in Thich Nhat Hanh's poem, The Pirate, he can't see. I mean, he is where he is. And meeting that person where they are is what the practice is. What his practice would be, what our practice is. Because Samadhi, again, I want, like everybody else, for them to appreciate the world the way I do, which doesn't happen. So if indeed someone does have a particular condition or life that is manifesting in how they are being in the world today, and they believe that is correct, they believe that is right, they believe that is how they should be manifesting, which I think narcissists do. They can't see themselves as wrong. And I remember dealing with, when I did have a person, at Kaiser who did have an official diagnosis, because I saw the medical report and the doctor, this was an official forensic psychiatrist that gave her a diagnosis of malignant narcissism. I didn't know that was a real diagnosis, but it is. I guess there was a code for it. And I can remember sitting with her. She was a nurse, and she had made a near deadly medication error. Fortunately, it got caught before it got to the patient. And so we brought her in and we were, questioning her. I was questioning her because I was the investigator at that time. And I basically, I walked her through her day, that scenario, what she did, how she got to that. And she was able to get to the point of, yes, she had used the wrong indicators to come to a measure because it was by body weight. So she had looked at the wrong number of the weight of this particular patient. She looked at two different patients and they weighed differently. So she had drawn up the medication for the weight of another patient, and that's what and it was a much larger patient. So the dosage was too high, but then the next question was, okay, so you looked at the wrong weight, you drew up the medication. It was for this patient that had a different weight. What did you do next? So she literally, I just saw it in her face, went blank. There was like nobody there. She could not make the leap of admitting that she had done something wrong. Couldn't do it. Not that she didn't want to, because I think that there was something about her that logically the brain was functioning. She knew exactly how to do what she was doing, and she got to the point where she realized that she had looked at the wrong weight and had drawn up the medication incorrectly. But then walking into the patient's room was where it stopped. She couldn't get there. So there's something about that mental illness that stops a person from seeing the effect of their actions. They know what they're doing because what they're doing can't be wrong. So what they're doing is right. So they're doing everything they think is right. So she thought it was right because the weight that she looked at was how she drew up the medication. So she drew up the medication correctly according to the weight that she saw. But then when it became time to the point of admitting that she made a mistake, face went blank. I don't know what was going on in her mind, but I just looked at her and I just, and the other people were sitting beside her and they were like, and literally her supervisor pounded the table. And, and I was like, get out. Do not blow up in my room. So, not the time. So this is narcissism is one of the ways people manifest in the world. Will they?
In that instance, she couldn't do what a lot of narcissists do, which is blame other people. Because you caught her
Yeah.
dead to rights.
Right.
Nobody else involved.
Right. She knew she did it.
You did this.
Yeah.
But most times there are people around that can be blamed.
Yeah. They do blame.
They don't have to.
They blame and deflect. They do exactly what Trump
Deflect,
does.
attack,
Yeah.
defer, deny.
Right. And this woman was a charge nurse, so she also had the power to control who was being scheduled. So anyone who did her wrong, she retaliated against. She made sure they weren't there. So I mean, she was mini Trump long before Trump. So her actions were. So I'm just saying, I use that very long example to say this is one of the ways oneness shows up. In all of these possible different ways is, so if you're putting Trump in that unexpected position in Samadhi, be careful of what you're expecting that to do, because it's only gonna do so much. How many other, and there's a full spectrum of mental illness and mental wellness and neurodivergence and the many other things that feed into how people manifest in the world that are this oneness that we are one with. This is the challenge of this particular koan, is what's in this samadhi that we're trying to bring someone out of? And how is it that Momio, I think Momio is a really important character in this, because we don't want to admit that there is wisdom in delusion. We want to separate ourselves from delusion entirely. That when we're enlightened, we're no longer deluded. And even Mazu Miroshi was, someone asked him if he was enlightened. He said, thoroughly deluded. Yes.
So, if there is wisdom in delusion, and I subscribe to that, point of view, then wisdom is relative.
It's what? I'm sorry?
Relative.
I still didn't hear the last word.
Relative.
Oh, well, isn't it?
So wisdom is falls within that non-dual kind of area.
Exactly.
So that explains a lot.
It does. It does. So, and what is, and we all know this. We know that it is not always wise to tell people the truth.
No.
Right?
There's a movie line about that.
What?
There's a line in the movie about that. You want the truth? You
Can't handle the truth. Yes. And oftentimes that's true. There's certain circumstances, certain people, certain situations that the truth is not a good thing to know. And I've started down another rabbit hole. I can't remember the author's name, but he actually said that space-time itself is not real. So I can't wait to get through this book. Then I'll have no reality whatsoever by the time I'm done with that. So it's what is wise is truly, yes, a relative term, but it's a consciously, an awareness that we have, because you're looking at the situation, looking at the context of the situation, looking at the people that are involved in the situation, and making the choice that is the most compassionate, that is possible, that the best compassionate decision you can make at that particular time in that particular situation, that hopefully will create the least amount of suffering. That's what wisdom is. However, the other side of Manjushri is that his job is to cut off delusion. So he's pretty one-sided in that. He's good at his job, but there's a limit to what he can do, which is why in the verse it says they're both free in that sense. So how are they both free? One can awaken her, the other cannot. Both have their own freedom. So Manjushri is free to Manjushri all over the place. Momio is free to Momio all over the place.
Don't get real romantic time.
and you know, and the analogy that Yamada Roshi uses is what was it, a snake and another animal. So obviously the snake is not free to, this other animal had legs. So this other, I can't remember the animal he used, but this animal, let's just call it a dog. So a dog is free to run and frolic and do all of those things that dogs do. And they're 100% free to do that. A snake is not free to run and gallop and frolic the way a dog does. The snake is free, 100% free to be a snake and to crawl and slither as snakes do. So we all, each of us have the 100% freedom within the nature that we have. And each of our natures is different. So that's how, you know, that's the exploration here. You are 100% free. You are not lacking in anything at all in the nature that you have. So I don't have the freedom to spend several $billion on anything because I don't have access to several $billion. But I do have access to read all the books that are on my bookcase. I can just tell everybody I'm not doing anything else. I'm going to decide just to read for the rest of my life. And I have the freedom to do that. Not a choice I would make. But so within the nature, within the circumstances, within what we have and what we are now, we are 100% free. But we're not free to be something that we're not. So that's the and all of that is within the same oneness, not excluded. It's all together. We're all one with all of these different freedoms. Both Momio and Manjushri are 100% free, but they do different things. So with Momio's freedom to find wisdom in delusion, to grant wisdom in delusion, he was able to bring her out of Samadhi. It's because Samadhi is pure oneness without delusion, which is what Manjushri gives. So he can't take away what he gives because that's his job, his only job. He's got one job. And he did it so well that he can't bring somebody out of what he does well. But someone else who has a different job can. And the Buddha is watching this all play out, going, really, guys, you're just being 100% you. You're good. It's all good.
What is it about Momio as the Bodhisattva of elusive wisdom that enables him to bring her out of Samadhi?
Momio being Momio.
What is there about that brings her, that enables him to bring her out of Samadhi?
Well, I mean, that's for you to experience within yourself. So I can give you a definition of that. In fact, his name is self-explanatory. So if the dictionary definition of Samadhi is this absolute absorption in what it is you were doing. So she was completely absorbed in sitting. That's all she was doing. And she was not and that is the gift of Manjushri. So that's why Manjushri presides over the Zendo. Manjushri provides you the ability, or gives you the gift to completely be absorbed in Zazen. That's all he can do. And that's hard to do. Momio is not stuck in Zazen. Momio's wisdom includes doing other things in Zazen. So finding wisdom in what is not the dictionary definition of samadhi, but it's still samadhi because there's nothing that isn't samadhi. Allows her to move out of that one particular aspect of samadhi into another. So how would that show up in your life?
I'm not getting this. So I don't understand what there is about elusive wisdom that would help bring her out.
Huh?
We'll stop there very quick.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like a ripple.
Yeah. So she's in Samadhi,
Mhm.
and she comes out of Samadhi. What does she come to? Where does she end up? Since she's come out
The
of
story doesn't say.
Hmm?
The story doesn't say. So we don't have that.
When somebody comes out of Samadhi, where do they end up?
Well, when you come out of samadhi, where do you go?
If and when I ever do. I would be back in the world.
Mighty place.
Okay.
And that kind of speaks to flux and change, and as opposed to the wisdom, virtue of the awakened ones of lessness. By the way, virtue is a horrible word. So yeah, it makes sense that it would be something that wasn't samadhi. That had something of this world in it, to awaken her to this world.
Could be.
Or it's one of those nightmares where you keep waking up in another thing.
So people
You
have,
woke up and another.
Wasn't there a movie?
Yeah.
Inception, yes. Great movie. Great cliffhanger at the end. It's like, oh, was that a dream? All right. Any from the Zoom that give them a chance to? Kirk, Steve. No. The looks on your faces. Yeah.
I'll just
Go ahead, Steve.
I'll just jump in. This was a very confusing one. This koan definitely is kind of it's got me a little bit confused. So I like it.
Great. Great.
What was the actual koan number?
42.
Thanks.
The meaning of life.
that's the,
So,
Huh?
What's the universe number?
Oh, you understand it? Yes.
the thing about samadhi is, if you're in samadhi, you're not saying, I'm in samadhi. That part of you that describes what state we're in it's lost in the absorption. So the only thing that's left is the absorption.
Mhm.
So it's not this discursive thing going on. So I would say, if you're in this discursive thing going on, then you're not in samadhi.
So if samadhi is manifesting as something separate, which it feels that way because you're completely absorbed in something other than doing
But when
life.
you're absorbed, you don't feel that you're absorbed.
No, you don't know it. The story about samadhi is always after the fact.
Yeah.
Yeah.
so why would she wake up and
Or somebody disturbed her obviously.
Or you could say that she woke up from it, or that she didn't.
It was like a handsome prince or something.
I was going to say, who was the more attractive one?
Fairy tale, prince.
Oh, no.
It sounds like
Sleeping Beauty
Romeo.
or something.
Sleeping Beauty,
Alice in Wonderland.
Snow White. Well, that's another myth. different myth. All right. I realized this is classified under it's called a Nanto koan, which is there are certain koans that are considered to be very difficult to penetrate, and this is one of them. It takes work, but it's not impossible. It does have a very simple answer, a very simple realization. But you have to work at it to get there. So it's worth the work. And a wonderful story, because certainly it raises more questions than it answers, which is, for my brain, that keeps me intrigued. Keeps me, wanting to go like, oh, I need to have the answer to that. Because like the harder it is, the more determined I become to, oh no, I will not rest until I get this. So, worth the work. All right. Any final questions before we close? I know there's so many questions, but anything